Hi, everyone. Good evening. Yay! Thank you for joining us tonight. We are going to start with a land acknowledgement, so I'm going to hand it over to Jackie, and then we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Taraha. All right. Our Voices Project acknowledges and honors that the lands we live, love, grow, work, and learn on are the ancestral homelands of the people of the Onondaga, or the Seneca, one of the 6 nations of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, along with the Cayuga, or the Gaia-Kohono, as they call themselves, Onondaga, or the Onondagaga, Oneida, the Onyotoaka, Mohawk, the Genyengahaga, and Tuscarora, Skorure. We acknowledge that our society was founded upon exclusions and erasures of many family, culture, or many indigenous peoples through centuries of genocide and forced separation from family, culture, language, and from land, spirit, and mind. We acknowledge this violent history of seizure and displacement that allows us to be on this land, not only as a recognition, but as a motivation for change. As filmmakers, we are committed to working to dismantle the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism through truth-telling. We invite you to join us in enacting justice by taking such steps as commit to making a recurring monthly donation to a Native-led organization, such as the Indigenous Peoples Day Committee here in Rochester or Native Made Market. Visit these organizations and find out how you can volunteer your time and help support Native-led initiatives. For more information, stop by our table. Find out how Indigenous peoples are represented in your local school district's curricula and advocate for the historical truth-telling of ancestral land dispossession and genocide, and the acknowledgement and celebration of Indigenous contributions past and present. Learn about the Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women movement created to advocate for the end of violence against Native women and to bring awareness to the high rates of disappearances and murders of Native people, particularly women and girls. Learn how you can help by visiting the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center, or the NIWRC. Lastly, help work towards truth, healing, and justice and Indian boarding school impacts by contributing to the National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition. Help create awareness about truth and reconciliation programs and initiatives centered on a Haudenosaunee worldview, celebrating and sharing Indigenous cultures, languages, and art, and by donating and or booking virtual programs for your organizations and groups with the Woodland Cultural Center, or formerly known as the Mohawk Institute Residential School in Brantford, Ontario, Canada.
Thank you, Jackie. And Jackie will be back up shortly before we start our video. So I want to welcome everybody again. My name is Taraha. I am the president of Pittsford CommUNITY. Unfortunately, Kevin Beckford, who is usually up here moderating, is probably watching from home. He's a little under the weather, and he is definitely missing us, so if my phone vibrates, it's probably Kevin watching. And so this is a series that began by Kevin Beckford when he was on the Pittsford Town Board. And so this has been going on for about 6 years, 3 through the town of Pittsford, and then 3 through us with Pittsford CommUNITY. And the last 2 years, we have been here at United Church, thanks to Reverend Jackson, and the board of United Church of Pittford for allowing us to host this event here. Tonight's event is the second of 5, and it's been every Wednesday. So tonight we will be watching a documentary that Jackie will come talk about, and then we'll have a panel discussion afterwards. And I just want to quickly thank our sponsors tonight. For this event is a human rights campaign. They are here tonight. There's a table outside. Our other event sponsors are Rochester Regional Health, the Highlands at Pittsford, Rock Growth, ESL, and then we have general sponsors, Enchanted Cabin Soaps, Howard Mafucci, Nahoko, Ralph Carter, Assemblymember Jen Lunsford, Lissa Plummer, Pittsford Town Board member Kathy Koshikar, Samara Massage, Kim Taylor, Wegmans, Deepika Singh, Naveen and Kate Heavenavar, Kevin Spencer Beckford, the Fazili Firm, Stephanie Townsend, Sharon, and Jennifer Canning. So without all of our event sponsors and general sponsors, we would not be able to have any of our events. And so Pittsford Community does have a table outside as well, so if you want more information. And would you be able to just put up the schedule for the next couple, please? So everybody can see them. Yeah. And so between the movie and the panel discussion, we will have a free will. We are at church, so thanks, Reverend Jackson. And so as you can see up on the screen, tonight we're doing Being Black in America. On the today's 15th. The next one will be Shantira Mitchum with the spoken word. I'm trying to do it off the top of my head. And then the 29th is Rashad Parker's film. And then the last one is actually on a Sunday at 3 p.m. for Interfaith Family Service. And I just want to, before I hand over to Jackie, just kind of bring back that this is the MLK Living the Dream series, and today is Dr. MLK's birthday. So it is very special. All right, so we will start. Jackie's going to talk about the movie, and then we'll watch the movie.
Hey, thank you again, Thadaha, and thank you everyone for coming out tonight. So my name is Jackie McGriff. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm the founder, co-producer, and director for Our Voices Project. My business partner, Courtney Schaus, who couldn't be here tonight, is the outreach facilitator and the co-producer of Our Voices Project. So it's a two-woman team. We are a production company committed to sharing the stories and lived experiences of Black, Brown, and Indigenous peoples through visual storytelling and truth-telling. We embrace identity, celebrate resiliency, and promote visibility of historically and presently marginalized communities through producing films and podcasts and hosting live panel discussions. We use various social media outlets to reach a wide audience beyond the city of Rochester and surrounding suburbs throughout New York State and the US, and even have followers in Australia, the UK, India, Spain, Portugal, and Nigeria. Being Black in America shows an array of different thoughts and attitudes behind Blackness and what it means to everyone on a personal level by asking one central question: what does being Black in America mean to you? It's a question that's asked in so many ways on screen indirectly and never seen as a conversation amongst ourselves as Black Americans, but directly at the camera to a general audience. This film, however, turns that on its head and makes the audience a bystander, not a participant. And do you have the slides up for me? Because I'm going to talk about the inspiration behind the project. Okay, so, you can keep that, yeah, there we go. All right, so those, let's see. So the inspiration behind the project. So oftentimes my business partner and I, Courtney Schaus, we get into these conversations about different topics that we can bring as far as panel discussions. This came around a time where we were starting to get a lot of these requests for panel discussions and our screenings around Black History Month. It seems as though institutions would only ask for screenings and panel discussions or reach out to us whenever it came to Black History Month or Juneteenth. So it was as if they were only remembering that I was Black at least 2 months out of the year, one of those months being the short month. So I was like, the last time I checked, Black 24/7, 365 days a year, 366 on a leap year. So we're all about celebrating that all year round. But while we have the platform that we do, we always make it a point, again, to really highlight and celebrate and uplift Black voices. And to encourage genuine conversations and open dialogue and help educate our community about what it truly means to be Black in America. Rather than relying on the media to show us what we are, we knew we wanted to highlight the extraordinary stories and perspectives of everyday Black people and showcase the experiences we are having navigating a racialized society. To do this, we invited folks into the studio and filmed their discussions about what it means to be Black in America. Okay, so how do we choose our participants? So if you turn your attention to the lovely people that you're about to see on screen. So we started by inviting our friends and partners. So these are people who we've developed relationships with, people that we've grew to know, people that we've worked with, people that we've collaborated with before. We brought them in and we asked, you know, would you want to be a part of a project where you're talking about what it's like to be, or what it is to you to be Black in America? And so again, it wasn't just us asking, you know, random, you know, Black people just going up to me like, hey, do you want to talk about what it means to be Black in America? It was about really building relationship, genuine relationship, wanting to be around, like wanting to get to know people. And so these are relationships we've built from months to years. And so that's who we asked to be a part of the film, and the people who could make it that day are the people that you see in the film, or you will see in the film. So how do we create an authentic Black space? Because if you're going to talk about something, especially where something has the potential to be heavy, you want a space that is going to be a place that is safe and brave, because those things are two different things. We're talking about a safe space versus a brave space. Safe space is a place where you feel as though you can say however you're feeling, however you're feeling in the moment, or just in general. A brave space is a space that invites perspectives that might not align with yours, and for it to be okay to have that perspective in this space. So we wanted to create an authentic Black space given this topic. And so we knew that we wanted it to be in a Black-owned space. So let's see, so you'll see her in the picture. That's who the arrow is pointing to. Coco Ray David, who is an artist in her own right, also a filmmaker, visual artist. That's her studio that she owns in downtown Rochester. It's called The Perp. She was not only the camera director, but of course the owner of that studio. There's signage you'll actually see in the film behind her that basically constitutes the kind of the rules of being in that space. And you'll notice what I'm talking about, you know, when I mean that it was perfect. This place was perfect to film the film. And also, too, because I believe in unapologetic plugs, you'll notice that there's a QR code. She also hosts events and does photo shoots there, so feel free to check her out on Pure Space. That's Coco Ray David. But yes, it was very important for us to film there to support a Black-owned business and to create this authentic Black space. And although involved in the conceptual process, building the panel and executing the design, again, my business partner, Courtney Schaus, who is a white woman, she was not present for the filming. As a co-conspirator to create an authentically Black space, it was a given that she would not be there. She fully affirms that as a white person, we do not belong in all spaces. Immediately following our screening, we will hear from folks featured in the film and take questions from you, the audience. And with that, showtime.
And so now I'm going to allow Jackie, who's going to moderate a panel discussion. And then if you all have any questions, I think Jackie will kind of utilize that as well.
Great, thank you, Faraha. And I would like to invite all of our panelists up, and then I will be introducing you to all of our panelists, and then we will get started with the discussion. Okay. All right, so yes, just come right on up. All right, as they come up, I will introduce y'all to who we have tonight. All right, so first we have, all right, to my immediate right, your left, Kim Smith is a Rochester native on the City Council whose work has prioritized community building initiatives as she works to forge relationships that lead to effective governing. Kim is the political director for Vocal US, or Voices of Community Activists and Leaders. Vocal works directly with impacted individuals and elected officials to create policies that will end HIV, homelessness, the overdose crisis, and mass incarceration. Next, hey, Tiffany. We have Tiffany Porter, who is the founder of Being Black in the Burbs and Accomplices. A fierce warrior for social and racial justice, Tiffany navigates the role of a mother to 3 sons with unwavering dedication to dismantling oppressive structures. Their mission is rooted in the belief that none of us can truly be free until all are liberated. And then we have Taurus. Taurus Savant is a Black queer artist, musician, poet, published author, and community advocate whose immersion in freedom of expression and sheer audacity moves him toward a world he dreams abundantly for. All right, thank y'all for being here tonight. All right, so first question here. Okay, so the film that you all just watched, we are actually celebrating 1 year. It was almost exactly to the date a year ago where we actually shot the film. So this is the 1-year anniversary of Being Black in America. Now, hearing yourselves on screen, is there anything that you said a year ago that you just heard that you'd want to either expand upon or change?
No.
Nothing to expand on? Nope.
It just takes a moment to respond, because being at a table with your sisters and brothers and having this discussion and being in front of an audience that's predominantly white, it feels a little different. So need a moment to claim my safe space. But I think for me, what resounded most during the video was just listening to all of us speak our truths and the importance of truth tellers, especially in this society where people can debate some facts that are presented, people can debate stats, people can debate numbers, but they can never debate your personal experience and stories. So the fact that we were all truth tellers feels really good.
How about you, Tiffany? Anything?
I don't think any. I just wanted the conversation to go on longer, because you're always like, oh, I could have said this, but I don't think I would have changed anything or expanded on what we were talking about. I loved how Taurus had went into capitalism. I think I wanted to talk a little bit more about that, about the classism. Those are the only things that I would want to talk more about, but everything else I enjoyed it. I wouldn't want to.
Let's see. Following up with that question, since filming the movie, is there anything that you've learned or taken away from the screenings, the panel discussions, the film process itself, or audience interactions that you've had that you'd like to share?
I'm not used to seeing myself on a film screen. That's kind of an out-of-body experience, to go from sitting at a table where they tell you there's 3 cameras pointed at you, by the way, and so the only rule that we had was don't look at the camera. And how do you not look at a camera when there's a bright light in it? But this is now, I want to say, the 5th audience I've sat in front of that's viewed the film, where I kind of sit inconspicuously in the audience and listen and watch people react and discuss after the fact. And it's really just an honor to be a part of a project like this, for people to gain an understanding, to see some sort of representation, to know that in the future this conversation will continue, and that anytime that we're in front of a group of people, that they always leave with some action items, because that's one thing we love to do with an audience, is say, so while we got you here, got some things for you, since everybody's intent and good on wanting to be good allies and contributors to the liberation of marginalized people. So thank y'all for beholding it.
So repeat the question. Is there anything, since filming the movie, is there anything that you've learned or taken away from the screenings, the panel discussion, the film making process itself, or audience interactions that you've had that you'd like to share?
The audience interactions afterwards, so I say this to folks and people look at me like I have 5 heads. I am terrified of public speaking. Every time I do it, I'm facing my fear. And so being at the table in a small setting with the cameras, that didn't really get me. But once we have to do these panels, I'm like, oh my God, is people gonna be looking at me? Like, so I kind of blink out. But the interaction with the audience, the questions that we get afterwards, I know that those personal conversations are really important, and that's what I enjoy, is interacting with the audience, hearing what they were thinking about the film, and also the people that we were with were just, y'all were awesome. Like, I was blown away, and I was just like, this was really extraordinary to be in the presence of other people that look like me and just are brilliant. And so, yeah. Right.
So this is the first time I've ever been
Yes,
on a
it is.
panel in front of an audience, talking about myself on screen. Just feels, but I had never been asked a question like that before. And at a table, such a powerful table, and it felt healing. And I wanted to take that with me. And so when I came here today, you talked about safe space and bold space. But being in that space, I learned another thing about space. So I learned that being a woman and being Black, and given some of my personal experiences, there are not a lot of times in my life when I come into spaces and feel like I can just trust the room enough to be vulnerable and put myself out there. But what I learned that is, if I do that, it is healing. So the space that I learned to create for myself was to claim my safe space. Regardless of what the perceptions are, regardless of what people are thinking and feeling, this is my space, it belongs to me, and I am free from your judgment. I'm free from all of that, and I get to sit in my truth when I claim my safe space.
Whew, it's always amazing hearing from each of you, all of our storytellers. And I always feel like, especially like, we always call, when I say we, I mean me. Whenever I'm like watching the movie, or if I have to do another small edit and everything for the film and everything, I'm listening back to everyone share their story, and I always, to myself, kind of call Kim the preacher, because I feel like every time she's always just like dropping the mic, with everything that you're saying. And so, speaking of preachers, of course, today is the actual birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was born this day in 1929. And so and because we are honoring one of our ancestors, we talked about ancestry in the film, I'm going to read an excerpt from one of his speeches, Where Do We Go From Here? And I want you all, as you listen, to tell me what immediately comes to mind for you. You may have to sit with it, because of course it's one of Dr. King's speeches, and so there's a lot. And so just to kind of sit with what it is that you're hearing and what immediately jumps out at you, and what you take from it. So Where Do We Go From Here was one of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s speeches that was delivered at the 10th Annual Southern Christian Leadership Conference in Atlanta, Georgia on August 16th, 1967. Okay. In Roget's Thesaurus, there are some 120 synonyms for blackness, and at least 60 of them are offensive. Such words as blot, soot, grim, devil, and foul. And there are some 134 synonyms for whiteness, and all are favorable, expressed in such words as purity, cleanliness, chastity, and innocence. A white lie is better than a black lie. The most degenerate member of a family is the black sheep. Ossie Davis has suggested that maybe the English language should be reconstructed so that teachers will not be forced to teach the Negro child 60 ways to despise himself and thereby perpetuate his false sense of inferiority, and the white child 134 ways to adore himself and thereby perpetuate his false sense of superiority. The tendency to ignore the Negro's contribution to American life and strip him of his personhood is as old as the earliest history books and as contemporary as the morning's newspaper. To offset this cultural homicide, the Negro must rise up with an affirmation of his own Olympian manhood. Any movement for the Negro's freedom that overlooks this necessity is only waiting to be buried. As long as the mind is enslaved, the body can never be free. Psychological freedom, a firm sense of self-esteem, is the most powerful weapon among the long night, or against the long night of physical slavery. No Lincolnian Emancipation Proclamation, no Johnsonian Civil Rights Bill can totally bring this kind of freedom. The Negro can only be free when he reaches down to the inner depths of his own being and signs with the pen and ink of assertive manhood his own Emancipation Proclamation. And with the spirit straining toward true self-esteem, the Negro must boldly throw off the manacles of self-abnegation and say to himself and to the world, I am somebody, I am a person, I am a man with dignity and honor, I have a rich and noble history, however painful and exploited that history has been. Yes, I was a slave through my foreparents, and now I am not ashamed of that. I'm ashamed of the people who were so sinful to make me a slave. Yes, yes, we must stand up and say, I'm black, but I'm black and beautiful. I'll give y'all a few minutes, or give y'all a few moments, because it's a lot said in that. It's hard to kind of take one little bit. You got to take a lot.
This is what you do to us.
Oh, yes.
What's the question?
What do you take from that? What jumps out at you?
The cultural homicide. I feel like we haven't came that far from where Dr. King was talking about. My advocacy is in the education system, and I'm burnt out after the 4th year of going back and forth to school board meetings and having conversations with administrators and parents and students, and still it's like they are still teaching things that are not, I would say, historically aligned or put historically minoritized people in a positive light, especially Black people. One of the biggest things that I hated about going to suburban school is that we only learned about Black struggle. We did not learn about Black contributions. I didn't learn about that until college. And so that's why when I say in the film, those chains were lifted off, is because I thought we didn't bring anything. I thought we were just here and, we didn't really learn anything, but we were slaves. And even the slaves part was kind of sugar-coated. They didn't get into the human trafficking. They didn't get into, what the raping, all of those things that is a part of our history. It was just, I felt like I was duped with the American school system. And so what I fight for my kids and for everyone else is that they learn our history, they learn the right history, and then they learn the joy of being Black, the joy in that history, because it was not all struggle. And we were, we use the word resilient, we were resilient. We did bounce back. We always make something out of nothing. But you don't learn that, you don't see that in society. And yeah, I mean, that's what kind of resonated with me. I have to say, I don't know where I'm at with the education system right now. As you can see, like Dr. King was talking about this in the 50s. And we now are seeing, African American studies being taken out of schools. We are seeing DEI being cut out of workplaces. Like, have we gone so far, And it also reminds me of like me speaking out in a suburb and being cyberbullied, being harassed for 3 years for speaking out, having parents come to attack me, send threatening messages through social media. One was even sent to my parents' house. One was even sent to the town to try to, I guess, vote me out of the town. I guess they can do that. And I'm just one person just speaking out about racism and being anti-racist and changing the curriculum so it can give all of our kids the power and the knowledge. And so when I heard that, I kind of just resonated, and it kind of brought some of the frustration and the anger that I work with each day, because I'm still having to have these same battles that we've been going through since the beginning of history. So.
Well, first of all, this is the universe at work, because my immediate thought was also about the children. I am an RCSD kid. The school that I went to was almost shut down twice, so I know all about the struggles of growing up and wanting to get out of there. A truth that I'm going to share with this group, which is something I usually keep very, very private and dear to me, is that I also am a Black educator. I work with between 70 and 80 Black and brown youth from RCSD through after-school programs and summer programs as a writing instructor. And I say that out loud because it's important to know, as Tiffany said, about our history and all of the things that we've experienced from then even to this day. There are a lot of things I honestly would just wish to unknow. Like, sometimes it just has to be out of sight, out of mind. I almost kind of don't want to know anymore, because the more you know, the more atrocities you come into, that come into light, the angrier you get. And oftentimes it's hard to find outlets with that anger. Thankfully, I use art for that sense. But hearing the way Black youth grow up, the way that they are already demonized, and they don't really realize that until they grow older. You hear it in the way that they talk to one another, even when they start as innocuous little jokes, and as they get older, that turns into, as I said in the film, internalized anti-Blackness. And I love coming in to counter that, and not even as a, oh, don't say that, don't say that. You can always, of course, say, don't say those, disparaging things about yourself or about each other, but explaining where some of those words coming from, explaining where some of these terms come from, and better ways to refer to yourself, better ways to refer to one another, ways to uplift them and bring them joy and show them capability, to show them that I, as somebody who did not finish college, I'm a college dropout, but to show them that college is for everybody, but not everybody's for college. But there are so many ways that you can be a productive member of society, so many ways that you can take your skills, your capabilities, and be somebody who you would look back at, especially as the work that they do gets documented, whether it's through galleries or books that they get put in. They become published authors at the end of the program. And even if they find it kind of corny now, when they sit in front of crowds and display their work or recite poems and they get nervous, it's like, the sooner you stand up and find that voice, the sooner you stand up and understand who you are, what you contribute to this world, how important you are, how necessary you are, how beautiful you are, and that there's a group of people who don't want anything else but to see you win, it makes me feel like I'm enacting my life's purpose. And the reason I keep that to myself is because, similar to Tiffany, I got a spicy mouth. I'm a person that will come in and say the things, and I've had even in my other previous places of work where people who were of a particular complexion will come and go, "Oh, do you know what your guy's doing?" It's one thing to disagree and maybe feel uncomfortable about the truths that are now being shoved in your face that you may or may not be complicit in, but it's another when you are trying to tear down somebody's livelihood because you don't like that truth. That is not only just my livelihood, but that is something that is beneficial to our youth, that's bringing forth our leaders of tomorrow, things that I didn't have when I was their age. And I do that because I'm protective of that work. I'm protective of those kids, so I don't talk about that often. But I wanted to share that because at some point they're gonna see that. I mean, to me, I'm just the corny bald guy that comes in and makes them right. But when they get older and they realize that whether they never pick up another pen or pick up another camera or don't even remember my name, what they will remember is somebody said, "I believe in you." Somebody said, "You can do this," and they will remember that, and that's enough for me. So on this day of Martin Luther King Jr., during a time I was not alive for, shockingly relevant, it's been crisis since I've been born. I'd like the crises to stop. I don't know, if there's a soft era, I'm ready for it. I'd like to be on a beach somewhere, but the universe brought me here with these beautiful people who I get to share these stories with, and I'm going to defer now because one thing about recognizing my privilege as a man is, especially as a black man, is to defer to the most disrespected demographic in the entire world, and that is the black women. And without black women, I would not be alive. Without black women, I would not be able to have cues that I can take from being the best version of myself to really bestow on to everybody to make their lives so much easier. So I'm grateful for that opportunity, and I concede.
Thank you. I felt that deep in my gut. And so, Jackie, as you were speaking, two words came to mind, but they're a contradiction, right? So the first was judgment. The judgment that we experience, and then the judgment that we have for ourselves. So there's this judgment that we see it all the time in statistics. You should have this. You should have this degree. You're supposed to have this. Why aren't you earning this amount of money? The things that we are supposed to have. But then the civil rights movement happened in the 60s, and we are still earning our rights. So give us a break. And because of that external judgment, there is the judgment that we have within ourselves that tells us where we are supposed to be. And if we are not there, are we a failure? And the other word is liberation. The liberation that we need assistance with in order to reach, and the liberation that we give to ourselves, right? When we accept and we embrace ourselves. So when you ask the question, where do we go from here, based on that speech, my spirit is like screaming liberation and running all around the church and let's go, let's move on. But my heart, that is still hurting when I reflect, tells me that to some degree, we need to be exactly where we are. We need to continue having these conversations. We need to continue, and I mean Black and white people sitting together, not from a point of sympathy. Oh, how are you feeling? But tell me about what you're going through and how you're feeling. And there's a difference. But to have that direct dialogue, I don't know that we're there yet. So in my heart, I feel like we need to some degree, stay present and just do more of this until the healing happens.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Whew. Thank you all for that. I'm going to, it's always interesting because we are constantly, speaking of like getting into more conversations, right? I'm always having these conversations, especially, you know, with other Black people, and then also people also too who are not Black but are, you know, here for and working towards Black liberation. Liberation is something that's constantly in my head, you know, 24 hours. It's always liberation. There, at some point, and Tiffany very briefly touches on it in the film, but it's speaking, and also to speak to your point as well, Kim, you know, about judgment, right, towards one another, or that we have towards one another. I want to talk a little bit about representation, Black representation specifically in the media. And so, Tiffany, when you say, you know, all you see is negativity on screen, I actually, before I pose this question, I just want to say this. Right now, each of you and our storytellers who couldn't be here tonight, in being in this film, whether you're conscious of it or not, are authentic folks whose stories and lived experiences is the kind of representation that we as Black folks need to see, because it is your experience and it's genuine. You are a part of that multifaceted representation. For you, what does real, authentic representation look like to you in the media or in general?
So I'm certainly not the best person to, oh, the Wilts. So I'm certainly not the best person to answer that question, and seeing Robin Wilt in the audience is nice because it speaks to this question. So perfect timing, Robin, because when something happens, right, and I get angry, Robin once flooded my text and was like, you have got to speak your truth. You've got to tell these stories in the media. But there is something that happens within me when that camera turns on and that mic is in my face. It feels exploitive and I get angry. And so I don't know how to answer that question except to admit that I need a lot of encouragement and agitation around that, because whenever the media approaches me, I get angry because they are asking these deep questions regarding these deep issues that I live every day. And they're recording my reaction, which feels exploitive. And so I have a lot of work to do on that, but I can tell you, like when I'm at home and my partner and I, when we're listening to things that are happening, like with the Kia boys, and it's like, these are young men stealing and hot wiring cars. Now this is where you're going to be challenged. Can you imagine the science and technology students that these folks would be? The genius of how they watched a video, learned how to do this thing, and now they're doing it. Imagine if we could create systems, right, that bring forth those talents. And in order for, and when we create those systems that bring forth those talents, we must also open up opportunities for them to utilize them, other than in the streets. So, it's not really answering your question, but it's what I got right now.
So more what I want to see, like I'm more like a jokester. I love comedies, stuff like that. I grew up with A Different World, Living Single, and Living Color, Rock, all these shows, Family Matters, Cosby, that showed black people living their truths in whatever joy it was. It had that comedic, but they had real life issues, especially with like A Different World. They was in a historically black college. They were talking about HIV, and it was, back then it was like, you know, taboo. And so those type of shows kind of like shaped me. Like I was able to see outside of the white suburb that I stayed in. I was able to turn on TV and see me. I want to see more black, I want to see more fat women on TV. I love how, you know, I love how like Queen Latifah was fuller body and she had these leading roles, you know, and I want to see, when I turn on TV, I want to see disabled people in love visibly. I want to see black trans people. I want to see people who look like me. You know, I want to see bald people, bald women. So yeah, and I think that, you know, just having one channel dedicated, this needs to be like universal. You know, like every channel I can turn on and see folks that look like me in representation. So.
Beautifully said. My immediate thought when I think of representation is, this is kind of like a tired cliche, but like one thing about a fire is that a fire grows when it is given space and oxygen to let it grow. And the more oxygen you give a fire, the bigger it grows until it gets out of control. One thing I try not to do is to give attention to things I don't like. So if there's like a show on TV or a movie or whatever, or Tyler Perry, or something's going on that I just am just tired of seeing, I don't make a point on going online and going, you see this, I hate this, I don't like, because what that does is, all it does is drive more attention to that person. It puts more money in their pockets, it gives you engagement, it gives you algorithm, it gives you all of that. So rather than go about what I don't want, what I can say, even in the cases of seeing the things I don't want, like even like the reality TV, all the exploitative moments of what it does to black people, especially black women. Yes, it can be entertaining, but if you peel back some of those layers, there are folks kind of like you and I who come from differing backgrounds, and if you are being paid to act a fool, then you're going to act the best fool you know, because a check is going to keep coming, and if people keep liking you, they're going to keep seeing you. I can't, in all good intentions, be mad at those folks for going on these shows to have an opportunity to be a personality, to be a brand. I can only turn my attention to the people who decide, okay, they create this programming, they are put in positions where they scout for this talent. I'm not mad at the people who answer those calls. I instead turn my attention to the people who produce those things, because there are better things I guess you really could be out there producing. What I would like to see myself, I was a really big fan of this show called Insecure. I love that show so much because it showed blackness in its perfectly imperfect form. Not everybody was the hero, not everybody was the villain. They just existed and went about their lives. There were characters that you could relate to, situations that you could relate to, and it was black for a black audience, not black repurposed for a different kind of audience. I also like P-Valley because I feel like we also have shows that are for everybody, encompassing every experience, because every experience is valid regardless of what people may think about it morality-wise. As a black queer man, I like seeing black queer media where it's two black people in love with each other, not black person with white love interests, not dark-skinned black lover with light-skinned interests. You know, I want to see all of that, and there's so many stories that can and will be told, and I feel like it would have to start by saying, it's only so many times you can say, I want to see it. And so I guess at some point it's time for maybe we got to start putting pen to paper and start pitching it, because that's how these people said, that's how these people created these shows. They wanted to see it. If they didn't see the representation, then you just have to create it. I am not the United Negro spokesperson. I can only speak from my experience and what I want to see for us, but my little corner ain't hurting nobody, but I know there's a lot of people beyond myself who would really feel affirmed to see that, not even just on TV, but in books. I'm not going to make this a diatribe about banned books, but there is a book that has now been banned called All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson, which tells the story of a queer black man growing up in the South and all of the trials and tribulations and beauty that comes with that. And because they considered it pornographic content, but little black me would have loved to have seen that book growing up. And I feel like that's a necessary coming of age story that would bring these children to a better sense of self-acceptance, a better sense of self-love, a better sense of self-guidance and understanding who they are, their beauty, and what they really have to contribute to this world, and just who they would inspire just because they read a book, they saw themselves, they heard a song, they watched the show or a film. And so any opportunities for those folks after me to see that and do that, that's what I want.
If I can just add just one final thought to that. I don't think we'll ever change the media. And to some degree, it really is entertaining. But we can change how we process. For example, when we hear that in 14621, there is an enormous amount of black on black crime. But then what they won't tell you is in 14621, there is an incredible and disgusting amount of poverty. And what do you think is going to happen when you get many people fighting for survival in one neighborhood? What is going to happen? It is not black on black crime, it is proximity crime. So we can't change the media, but we can change how we process it and how we seek out truth.
Absolutely, absolutely agreed. And to your point about, you know, whether or not we'll see, or us not seeing, right, a change in media, that has actually challenged a lot of how I operate, how we operate as filmmakers. Knowing that, you know, Hollywood isn't necessarily going to progress either as fast as we would like it to or progress at all. What I've been seeing is a lot of actors, especially actors and writers and producers and directors, you know, who are either black or brown or native, recognizing this and creating their own production companies. And then I'm seeing those production companies support each other, creating this network, right, of all of these stories that need to be told that are not going to be told by Hollywood, and therefore creating, again, building audiences that want to see these films, that want to advocate, that want to push for more of these genuine, authentic narratives. And so that's what I'm always encouraged by. By the way, so a couple of things. You mentioned Taurus Insecure, which is now on Netflix. Appreciate that. P-Valley is on Stars?
It's on Stars. I found it in other ways, but I watched it.
Okay. In other ways, asterisks there. And then there was another one you mentioned, A Different World, which I absolutely appreciated. If you don't know A Different World, it was a spinoff of The Cosby Show, where Denise goes to college, and it's as Tiffany was saying, a historically black college. And that really opened my eyes as a young person to a lot. That is also on Max. Definitely go watch that. And so with that and everything that you have all shared here, I really want to take this opportunity now to open it up to the audience. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. And actually, I'm sorry, before I said the second thing, I was going to say second thing. I said one thing and then another thing. This is how ADHD works. Yes, just constantly. So the second thing I wanted to mention is actually, I wanted to give a shout out to Brian Little, who him and his wife Tam, yep, that's right, Brian and Tam Little, they started a group that's called Dream in Color, which gathers Black and other people of color, filmmakers and media professionals. Each month we talk about our projects, and there's a speaker that comes in and talks about an area of expertise to share, and it's really a way for all of us to network. So that network that I was talking about before, where all of these like Black, Brown, and Native folks are getting together and talking about their projects and supporting each other, that's what Brian and Tam Little have created. So Dream in Color, if you know, yes, give them a hand clap for that too. Yes, exactly. So if you know of Black, Brown, or Indigenous filmmakers, media professionals, right, who are trying to grow a network or trying to network with other people and get support, definitely check out Dream in Color. Okay, now I'm opening it up to audiences. Does anyone have any questions?
I'll confess, I like humor, and so I've spent a lot of time with Tyler Perry and Medea and all of those variations. But I was particularly impressed with the fact that he made the docudrama of the Army Unit 6888.
Anyone else?
Can I just put a plug into that? If you have not seen that, can you name it again? The movie? 68888.
Yeah, 6888. It's an Army division in England with the responsibility of sorting out mail that's turned into a big mess, and they're way behind, and the GIs haven't received their letters from home, and the people at home have sent their, so it's a real challenge. It's a fun watch, and if it's World War II and it's London, so now it just made me think of another interesting one you should see, and I'll stop.
The Black women came through in that movie. Watch it.
Yeah,
It's on Netflix currently.
I second that. I actually cried at the end seeing that movie. And I wasn't going to watch it at first because I didn't see it advertised as much. But then my wife wanted to watch it. I was like, I like Kerry Washington. Okay. I was kind of turned off by Tyler Perry, too, just a little tiny bit. But that was his best movie ever made. That's the best movie Tyler Perry ever made, in my opinion. So I just wanted to, I'm sorry. And I worked in tech audio. Yeah, just don't tap the mic. So I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you for the shout out, Jackie. And this movie that you all have put together is very powerful. And I say that because, growing up in the city of Rochester, obviously I've had, challenges and things that I had to go through. But during my journey, I've always dealt with a lot of imposter syndrome. I've always wanted to be in situations where I was the only, African-American male, Black male, especially professionally when I started working in production, things like that, going to meetings. I would be the only one that would show up. Now, you got to excuse me, I've been dealing with the cough, so I'm kind of getting a little breathless here. But I right now work for one of the best tech companies in Rochester. and they've been voted top 100 companies, a part of that list 2 years in a row. But the crazy thing about that is, out of the 60, 70 people that work there, myself and one other black man are the only black men that are there. And I gotta tell you, these folks have made it so easy for me to work there. But when I came there, I came a little bit broken. And I dealt, again, well, I thought I got rid of the imposter syndrome until I showed up there. And I started feeling like I don't belong here. And I would question myself, maybe for the first year, like, I don't even feel like I'm supposed to be here. Now, I know I'm qualified to be here, but I don't feel it. And it wasn't anything that anyone was making me feel. I didn't see people trying to make me feel like I did not belong there. But it was just something that growing up, and I've been in the Marine Corps and everything, and even in the service, you've had pushback, you've had racial stuff that you had to deal with. But you think you get away from some things, especially being black. You think, oh, I've got that conquered, I got that licked. And watching this film, because I want to bring it back to what I'm seeing here, watching this film has woken up some stuff in me. And I'm like, wow, just hearing hearing you talk about your experiences, I'm like, man, I haven't heard people just real about it like that in a long time. And I watch a lot of documentaries, and they talk, and these people are famous, and you know them, you see them, and you're like, okay, well, you're rich or whatever. But to see regular people just express their truth, it's like it's refreshing. And so I'm just glad to be able to witness this and tell others about it. So that's all I wanted to say.
I see Robin.
Don't do a lot of yelling at us.
First of all, I just want to congratulate all of you and thank you for being in this brave space. I just feel so tremendously blessed to have experienced this. So first of all, I just want to give you a round of applause. So. And then I wanted to ask you to be a little bit vulnerable, because I know that, for one, filming that in that very different space where you were able to share freely and be vulnerable and not even think twice about it is very different than sharing before a predominantly white audience. And so I want to ask you, what is your hope in sharing this very vulnerable experience that you all have with this type of audience? What do you hope that we take from that?
I think it's great, Robin, that you recognize the vulnerability and the emotional heaviness that it took being in that space, making that video. And I would hope that it is not for naught. And I remember, so this is the first time that I've watched this, because I won't watch myself on video. And when I saw one of the flyers, and you talk about imposter syndrome, when I saw one of the flyers, and Jackie knows how heavy this is for me because she's also a photographer, and I needed pictures for something, and even during that picture, I'm like, Jackie, just take the picture. It doesn't matter the pose. I don't like myself in pictures, just take the picture. And when Jackie presented this at a film festival. And when I saw my face on the poster, I immediately emailed Jackie and I said, thank you for making me beautiful. And so all of this and this vulnerability, and I don't believe that I'm sitting here in tears. This is not what I wanted to do. But I'm hoping that this is not for nothing. And so my hope is twofold. My hope is that all of you out there, especially you white folks, will understand how hard this is for us and how hard it is to be in the space, being this vulnerable in front of you, and that when we leave this space and leave these conversations, that you will do what the activist community calls one-to-ones. That you will reach out to everyday people in your community and start having conversations to talk about this healing, right? Because leadership in our communities matter. Like, I cannot tell you how much people talk about Reverend Jackson out there. It's your birthday. If no one wishes you a happy birthday, you're gonna get a happy birthday post with at least 50 likes. Just do your part so that this is not for naught, so that we don't feel exploited, but utilized and useful. And I've already had the conversation with Jackie. You got a whole lot of responsibility here. You've got to carry this message as far and as wide as necessary. And she has been. So I just want to give it up for Jackie.
So vulnerability is something that it comes easy to me. I'm an extrovert, and I took a public speaking class, so I have no problem sitting in front of a group of people and talking. I'm a performer, for Lord's sake, so I have no choice but to get over that. Before I go into that, my thought to you, gentlemen, let me tell you something. I never want to hear the word imposter syndrome come out of your mouth ever again. You are allowed to take up as much space as you allow yourself to have, because you are fully capable in this world full of mediocre people who have all sorts of degrees and tax brackets doing no kind of work. And if they can do that, you can literally do anything. There's nothing you can't do. I'm physical proof of the universe that shows you that anything is possible. Again, I am sitting here with no degree. I didn't finish school. I am not in a tax bracket of $50,000. But I'm still able to have these kinds of conversations and talk to people, connect to people, come up to people. But the biggest thing that this comes down to for me is trust. And I trust Jackie. I mean, dare I plug this hoodie? I dare. I met Jackie through In This Moment 5 years ago, which, thank you, which we're having our event to celebrate LaVon Shepard and Stanley Martin on January 27th at the Eastman Museum. So please come and see that, because they deserve your adoration and funds. I don't know if it had been mentioned at any point during this evening, so I will. We went down to East Islip after submitting to a handful of film festivals. We were selected in the Voices Rising Film Festival, and announced to our surprise, after eating chicken French, which is a Rochester staple, and they didn't even know that, so I had to put some education in there. So that was universe at work. We won the Jury's Choice Award. And again, this is to be able to go to a place like New York, a place I ain't never been to. I don't know any of these people out there. I know some of y'all, but I don't know all of y'all. But people watch this and they come away with it, and I still kind of am my flabber has been gasted every time people come up and go, it really meant a lot to me when you said this, or you said that, or Kim said this. And actually, I'm only going to put you on the spot for a junior hot little Debbie second, I promise. Every time I post screenshots of the film, I never post screenshots of myself because it's not about me, it's about us as a group. But most of the time when I'm posting a screenshot, it's usually of Kim. But first of all, I recognize the beauty of everybody here. Kim, Tiffany, Jackie, Katrina, Gabrielle, Anne-Marie, beautiful beings that are coming up here sharing our stories. As Kim said, this is not for naught. I'm not trying to fall on anybody's sword. I'm not here to be anybody's martyr. But what I am here to do is tell you the truth, tell you my truth to the best of my ability, and all I can do is put it out there. If it resonates with you and you decide to be moved enough to do something with that truth and help make this world a better place for marginalized people, and help for the liberation without getting in the way and usurping it, but asking, coming into these spaces, I genuinely want to help. What can I do? I know people, or I have some funds, or I have a grant, or I have a space. And offering those spaces, offering your homes, offering your friends, your expertise, anything you have to offer to marginalized people, to dedicate your lives to making this world a better place, because it's very easy in your privilege to go, well, this is how I grew up. And as I said earlier, there's a lot of things that we've learned and had to unlearn, but we can all be living proof that regardless of the fact that our full frontal cortex had fully formed, that there are truths that we can grow into, but also peel back and go, all right, you know what? For a long time, I had this belief, but now I have been shown something different, and now I am ready to take action and jump in there and do that. So if that happened for any of you all tonight, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to do that. You should have did it earlier, but it's been done. And with that, I digress.
Question was, what do we want people to take away, our audience? For me, hearing that folks resonate with what we were saying is big. Other than that, I would have to say, I want folks to continue to do the work. Like, anti-racism is a lifestyle. It's not like a fad that you just put on one day and take off. It's the lifestyle. You have to live that way. You have to wake up that way. And so in the work that I do, what I see a lot of is when folks get just a little bit uncomfortable, especially with the things that I say, because I'm more like plain language, like raw. When they get a little uncomfortable, then they kind of revert back to whatever it was. And so I would like for people to understand the impact that that has on us and continue to do the work. I need you to, like, think about your privileges, your biases, anytime you're going into the room and you're coming into these spaces like we are right now. And even if you hear something that triggers whatever in your brain, to ask yourself, why is it doing that? Like that is things that I do, every day. And I just think that that's what I want people to take away, to continue to do the work. Because yeah, we shared some real vulnerable things on screen and some traumatic things. And part of that trauma that we don't want to have to keep going through, it would help if you continue to do your part. And, showing up to here is one thing, but when you leave, connect to the mutual aid groups, connect to organizations that like Pittsford CommUNITY, keep that connection going and speak out. Like with my group, I don't know how soon I'll be starting back going to the freaking Board of Education, but it'll be coming. But I also do housing. I've been dedicated to doing housing rights for about 2 years now, where I'm sitting in a room with executives and talking to them about how I need them to understand these people are human, that they're helping and stuff like that. And so I just need folks to continue to do the work. That's the message, because it just doesn't end with you watching us on screen or it resonating. I just need you to continue to do the work.
And I also wanted to share too, when you're talking about what is the hope for the film, when I started Our Voices Project back in 2020, so I started this with a friend of mine who was an aspiring cinematographer at the time, and after the murders of Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd, and here in Rochester, Daniel Prude, I had been wanting to be a filmmaker for a long time, and I wanted authenticity. A lot of what I was seeing on screen were these caricatures of Black folks, and what I wanted the perception, not of non-Black people, I wanted the perception of ourselves, a shift in that, because a lot of what we were being exposed to as Black people was also showing us and teaching us what it is to be Black, and I wanted folks to see that there are many different ways. Unless it is anti-Black, there are many different ways to be Black in America. And so my hope with this film, and a hope with all of our films really, is not only to continue these conversations and to continue to do the work. What that looks like for us is to continue to show this film to many different audiences, not just here in Rochester, but beyond Rochester, because we're talking about being Black in America, it's being Black in America. So throughout the nation, to give, college students, universities, schools, to have them, help them, navigate those conversations and actions with the film. It's helping grassroots organizations and activists and community leaders and educators, whether out in the community or at these institutions, also have a film that can be the springboard to not only to start and have these conversations, but then also to do actions within their own communities. So that's what we're trying to build with Being Black in America. So that is my hope, and my hope is also too in whoever, whether it's a Black person who has lots of people around them, lots of Black people around them to support them, but it's also for the Black people who feel as though they don't have anyone, or who are feeling very isolated, who are in a space or a neighborhood or a community of a lot of folks that don't look like them, and so that they feel that they can't relate to anything, and need to have those conversations and want to have those conversations and build up that sort of rapport with other people that look like them, and to continue to have those conversations. So that is also my hope. Do we have time for another question, or are we wrapping up? No? Okay, all right. So I just want everyone to give a round of applause to our storytellers. And the only other thing I would say before I hand it off to Thadaha is how you can support Our Voices Project and where you can find us. If you want to pull up the slide on how to contact us, that'd be awesome. But yes, we are on, so we have a mailing list, which we have a QR code out there on our table, so feel free to visit our table. There it is. So you can either scan the QR code, you can scan the QR code to sign up for our newsletter. We're on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, because no one calls it X. We're also TikTok, depending, because it is set to be banned. But we are also on Threads. We're also on Blue Sky. And we're also on YouTube, of course, where you can watch some of our other films. And then we also have our website, ourvoicesproject.com. We also have a podcast. When we're talking about representation in media, that is what we talk about on the podcast. We're on Spotify as Representation in Cinema. And then last but not least, if you want to go to the next slide about feedback, we would like to know what you thought about the film. You can also scan that QR code to let us know, or they're also just stop on your way out, stop by the table and fill out those sheets to let us know what you thought of the film and about this discussion tonight. And with that, thank you all again so much for being here and watching the film and hearing from our storytellers.